Hello, everybody. My name is Tim Carlisle. I am the base commander of Mare Island Base. I also am leading the website project. I send out emails once a month. I have a small team that all want to remain anonymous, at least for the time being, until we get the work done. I'm going to share my screen and talk for less than 10 minutes, and then I will answer all your questions until we're done. All right. So I'm going to talk today about our website and the update of where we are and where we're going. Okay, this is my agenda. We're going to talk about the databases, the database, the website, Blackbaud, which is a company, the rest of the data, and what we can ask you to do to help us. So when I was asked to look into this by the national commander, we asked for backups of the database, and I thought we had one database. We, in fact, had 7 different ones. We had ones that had base information, chapter information, deck log, which is not only submariners, but it's also the whole Navy, people that served on ships and such. USSVI voting, USSVI, which is a subset of the deck log database, the Naval Submarine League, and boats. Now, the problem with that is that this was done a real long time ago, over 20 years. And the way we do things now is very different than the way we did things then. All of these databases all tied to our website. So what we did as a team and worked together is we took all 7 of those databases, which had massive duplication of data. So like you could find rate and rank insignia, and I think every one of the 7. And we restructured the database, captured everything, and put it all in one database. The reason we put it in one database is because that's what this company, Blackbaud, required. Had we paid someone to do this, my estimate would be $150,000 to $250,000. We did in 6 weeks what it took 3 companies 7 years to do, and they never got it done. I had worked with some really good people to help make that happen. Now, we have the website. The USSVI website is written in something called Classic Active Server Pages. It's not a technology that we use today necessarily, but you can use it to a point. So what we have a challenge with is all of the connections between the website and the database. There are 726 of them. And in the USSVI website, there are 1,400 web pages. So to make this work, the first thing we did is we're going to have to upgrade the technology and the database connections and eliminate the requirement for us to use Internet Explorer. We've taken most of that out already. So when I say this, the way we're doing things is the old website is shutting down fairly quickly, like early June. And I'll tell you about what steps you can take with that. We have already handed Blackbaud a backup of our data. They're going to map that data to their system, and we'll provide them a second backup right before we go live, which means before the database is active. Now, at the same time, before I talk about the rest of the data, we're shutting down that old server. It was compromised. The FBI talked to the folks and notified our national commander about this a few years ago. We took a hard look at that and determined that while we could see where someone may have been planning to do something, as of that date, we checked everything thoroughly, ran a bunch of tools and tests on things, and made a determination that nothing was compromised. The reason that's important is we're taking the old databases, upgrading them. We're taking the old website and changing those 700 plus connections. And we're going to use that somewhere besides where the server is located now, so that we can run the organization off of that website until Blackbaud is done, which is scheduled to be somewhere around the end of July with the database, and the website will at least be usable by the end of August, or hopefully the week right before the national convention is our goal. Now we've got a bunch of other data. Blackbaud's system and the way they do things is not set up for some of our data. So we have a lot of static data. If you think about static data, think about the lost boats. We haven't lost a submarine since the 60s. So that data is relatively stable. What we're planning to do is take that data, and it will have its own little URL, and it'll be part of a database that also includes the 44,000 Eternal Patrol records that we have, as well as submarine reunions. We're going to put that in its own database. It will be hosted with some maintenance by one of our team, and very, very cheap to maintain it. And what we're going to do is then those will all be linked to the main USSVI website when we get ready to go live with Blackbaud's system. Now, here's what our timeline is looking like. We started this about mid-March. We combined the databases. We delivered that back up to Blackbaud. We reconstituted the old website. We're still in process of doing that. The website that we're familiar with will be down from the 1st of June to the 15th of June. The reason that we're taking it down is we're shutting that old server down and bringing a new one with the old rebuilt site up. And then that's going to last us until we get the database stuff completed, which will be somewhere in the neighborhood of June or July 22nd. The Blackbaud website tied to the database will go live somewhere around 8/22. And then there will be training. I've done a lot of the training, and a lot of it is requires 3 hours in-person classes, which I don't know how I ever made that work, but I did so. And a lot of the training that Blackbaud has given us to date is not something that I think is really going to be super helpful to submarine veterans that need to be able to just do a specific group of tasks. So working with the incoming national commander's wife, who creates training for organizations, we'll put together our own manual. Myself and one of my other teammates will do a lot of training on Zoom for bases and membership chairs and others, and base commanders, district commanders, and so forth. And that training will probably be held fairly regularly between end of August and the end of the year. Now, here's what I can use your help in. Well, you're already here at the region director Zoom meeting. Before June the 1st, please back up your member data. And when I say back up your member data, that's where you call up your members and you export that data. There's 2 different ways. Please do both of them. If you have any information that's on your web page that is in the USSVI website, I would start working to download anything you want to keep or take screenshots of. You don't have to do that by June the 1st, but I'd strongly recommend you do it relatively soon. Again, August to December, we're going to have training. Some of that training will be live web demonstrations, and some of it will be short 3 to 4 minute videos I can take screen captures and you can watch somebody pressing the buttons with a voiceover and a few other things that are pretty handy. And we'll make a lot of videos so that you'll know how to do whatever it is that you'll need to be able to do. So in summary, I've talked about the 7 databases into one, what the website looks like, and then the rebuilt website that's like the one we have now. Then there's going to be Blackbaud, who will develop their own database and website, which we will update with the latest data when that goes live. We will host the rest of the data elsewhere. So things like Eternal Patrol, submarine reunions, and the lost boats and static data. And I've told you what you can do. If you have any questions for me, and I put this out in my monthly email, USSVI website questions at gmail.com. Now, this is a bit of information, and I'm happy to answer your questions, and I'll stay as long as we need to stay. Thank you.
Tim,
Yes.
will we still have members' photos on the new website?
Yes. As far as I know, the answer is yes. Now, we're still working with Blackbaud to design what the website looks like. We've captured all those photos. And I think what we, and I think what it's we'll just have to have like the before photos and after photos. We have a copy of all that. Now, will we be able to do that working with Blackbaud? I'm not certain, but we have the pictures, which is half the battle.
And all documents, an American submariner will be up there?
Yes. Now, the thing that won't, like I said, the thing that likely won't be is like the individual web pages that each base has. We're still discovering what this is going to look like. I mean, we just started calls with Blackbaud last week. And I have a bunch more of them left to go. And I mean, I've got like 10 or 12 different meetings with them. And it's not just myself. So we have our technical people, at least 2 of us are on each call. And then we have the national commander, Wayne Standifer, Steve Bell, Dennis Nardone is on most of them, and Bill Andrea, who's the incoming national commander. So we've gotten really great support from our national leaders, and we're dealing with the company. It's like anytime you do things like this, there's always things you have to find a way to agree on, figure out how to make things work. And we're in the process of that. We're not anywhere close to done, but our database should be done about the 20th of July and our website done around the end of the 3rd week of August.
Thank you, Tim.
Tim?
Yes, go ahead.
Dave Davis, New Jersey North. How can we prevent a similar situation like this from happening in the future?
Well, that's a really great question, Dave. And this is part of what maintenance is. So right now we're paying Blackbaud to take our data in and use in their system. Okay, that's step 1. Now that alone would be technically enough to do what we wanted to do. But we all talked amongst ourselves after I had a chat with the national commander, and we decided we wanted to fix all the online data that USSVI has to the best of our ability. When I say that, that's why I'm saying all this extra stuff that's not really Eternal Patrol records, all these things. We want all that data to be up there. The most important thing about that is that it's under maintenance. So in other words, one of my teammates is somebody that maintains websites and does hosting stuff for a living. And what he is going to do is he'll make sure that if there's any issues and work with people to make sure that we're able to update that data that needs to be updated and, you know, keep things working properly. Where the challenge came, in my opinion, from the old website is that the gentleman has been on Eternal Patrol for quite some time. And what was developed was very, very customized. And that usually is the death knell of when things break. They were in a situation where if they tried to fix it, something else would break. That won't be the case here. This is stuff that's using industry standard best practices. And I think that's real important to understand. Plus, you know, if we think that there's an issue with the database, we can upgrade it again. I mean, we had trouble finding something old enough to even open the database. It was so old. It's like SQL 2000. We finally figured that out with an old version of SQL 2008. And then we had to, we upgraded that to something that's modern today. So I think, number one, my guess is there'll be some sort of a committee that keeps an eye on this as well. That's my opinion. I don't know that for certain, but I think it's really a function. Even if we all just fixed it one time and stepped back and didn't do anything more, my guess is it's probably going to last for about 10 or 12 years, even that way. Now, no one's planning to do that. We're going to stay involved with this, you know, for most of its life cycle or until we're all on Eternal Patrol. So, and if we lose people, we'll find new people to replace them.
Hi, this is Bob Bachman from the Long Island, New York base.
Mhm.
We have a lot of historical data on our USSVI website. Is there a way to back that up, or should I be doing picture taking screenshots of that data?
Well, there's several things you can do. If it's a file that can be downloaded, I would certainly download it and keep it and put them in folders or something. If it's your member data, you know, just export it. But if you want to, you take screenshots, that's probably not a bad idea either. In one of the previous calls, I was asked to do a little looking on hosting solutions or people to maybe if there's people that need to develop a website or what have you. I'm still in the process of doing that. You know, one discussion I had a few years ago is maybe we ought to have based on base size, find some company that we could work with, and it would just be a fixed price for large, medium, and small bases, different price structure. I don't know if we can do that. I'm willing to look into it, but you know, that will probably be you know, as soon as we get everything done here, then maybe I can look at that. I'll keep researching it too.
Okay. The other thing is I have a lot of data in the calendars that we have there, you know, birthdays and all sorts of stuff. Is that going to be backed up or ported over, or do we have to redo all of that?
Well, I don't know that there is a calendar in the Blackbaud site. There may be, there may not be. You're probably going to have to be prepared to port that over.
Okay.
You may want to just go month by month and take screenshots, you know, whatever you know it better than I do, might be helpful, however you want to do it.
Okay.
And, you know, that's just the limitations of the system we have. And
Okay, thank you.
Tim, this is Marshall Hoyt. Can you hear me?
yes, sir, I can.
Okay, and you're saying what we can do, you said there's two ways to export the data. Is the screenshots considered the second way?
No, there's two different ways to export your member data. There's two different links, and you want to do both of them. The reason is some of the birth date data is 1900 or something is the year, So I would recommend you just export it both ways. You go to members and there's the old way of doing it, the new way of doing it. And I'm not an expert at exporting it all, but if somebody else wants to jump in, feel free.
Well, I'm not clear on this export because I can see the export button and I've used that.
Yeah.
Where do I find the second export
Good
mechanism?
question.
So my understanding of it is there's two ways to export your data. There's and you bring them in, it makes them into Excel files or CSV files. You click export, and then there's another way to do it. I'm not 100% sure, but what I do know is you can give Dennis Nardone at the national office, he can tell you how to do that for certain. I'll look that up for my own edification though, and I'm putting your name down, Marshall. I'll give you a call or give you get that to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
He's not the only one with a question on that. There's one.
There's a button above. Oh, go ahead.
It says there's export in this list, and then export menu, which allows you to set up certain custom positions on that. But I don't see any other button on there that talks about export whatsoever.
Okay. Let me dig into that a little bit, and I'll get very specific directions. I'll send it to Les and he can set it out to everybody. Does that work for everybody?
For
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I'm writing it down right now. By the way, Howard, I think that's the sea wolf in the background there. I was on that boat.
Yes, sir. I was on it twice.
Okay. What other questions do we have?
I have a question. You
Okay.
said the old website is going to come back online June 15th.
Yes, that's what we're aiming for. So for
What browser do we need to get into that? Because right now you got International Explorer 8 or less.
I understand. And we took all that code out. So you should be able to use Chrome, Firefox, or Safari, whatever, and it should work just fine. I've tested it. I've tested the homepage a little bit. The big part of this is it's really tedious making all these database connections, and a guy's worked a full-time job, and this is basically his second full-time job. Once we get all the connections made, then we have to go through and test to make sure everything works. We thought we would have the connections made by June the 1st. We still may have that, but we put in the 2 weeks of downtime just so that we can make sure we can test everything properly. We don't want to give something that's kind of not real good and hand it over to everybody and then it not work. I mean, we may have some of that, but we don't want to have a bunch of it. So that's where we have a whole group of us that will test that to make sure that it works right. You will not go to the same URL, ussvi.org. That one will be disconnected from the current site, and that will tie into the Blackbaud site that will go live at the end of August.
What about the tools menu?
Tools menu is it's not gonna be the same. Well, on the temporary side, it'll be the same. It'll look the same. You'll log on just like you do in the old system. When we go all the way to the other end with a Blackbaud, you will have a page where it gives people the opportunity to join, get history about us, and then there's a members section. You'll click on the members section. You'll have a username and password, just like you do on our site, although it'll be a little bit safer. And then you will go into what will be replacing the tools menu. Make sense?
Sort of.
Yeah, I know. Go ahead.
With the new system, will it be accessible for iPods, iPhones, et cetera, so you can actually see a full screen?
The answer, as I understand it, for it will be mobile friendly. It won't look exactly the same way on the mobile device that'll look on an iPad or on a regular computer, a laptop or a desktop. But there is a mobile version of this, which is real important because young people today, they live on their phones. They don't necessarily live on their computers. So yeah, a lot of that I think will be fine. Blackbaud has that all configured into their system. And that's for everybody that uses their system, not just us.
Sounds good.
Okay. What other questions can I answer?
Tim, this is Marshall Hoyt again. When we have our backed up data, what are we supposed to do with it to get it onto the new website?
You probably won't have to put it onto the new site. We have all of that. We handed over to this company. So I don't think you're going to have to do anything with it. We're just saying, as a precaution, make the copies. There's a question in the chat from Pat, and it says, will there be a manual to download for step-by-step instructions? The answer is yes, and that we're going to create our own manual. And the reason is I've taken a bunch of the Blackbaud training, which is very good at being generic. Some of the training that will be forthcoming for our technical folks and the national leaders is going to be working with our data. Now we're going to record a lot of that information and have copies of it. But more importantly, we're going to create our manuals from that data. So that when I say manual, it'll be a manual. I don't know if we're going to send that out to everybody, like a paper-based, here's a manual, have a good time. I mean, we might do that once. I'm talking with folks about, let's just have it where we can email it to you. And if you want to print it out, great. And that because things change and we don't want to be sending out a hard copy manual a bunch of times. Another question that I have is what browsers, Safari, Chrome, Edge, and Firefox, pretty much the main browsers that you can use. It won't be limited like what we have now. And believe me, it took us a while to figure out how to get rid of that. So we don't want anything to do with that because everybody uses different stuff and we don't want to, it kind of limits our ability to do what we need to do. Yes.
Alan Boyer, Keystone Base. About 6-8 months ago, I was hearing a lot of rumblings in the background that this was going to happen. And they were talking about the tools, and that when tools would come onto the new system, there'd be different levels of tools users to do different functions on that website. Is that the way it's going to work, or is it going to be like?
Yeah, it's going to work similar to the way things work now. So if you're a base commander or a membership chair or a treasurer, you can see the folks from your own base. If you're a district commander, you can see all the bases in your district. If you're a national officer, they have a whole bunch more tools that I didn't even know existed. And my point being is that the way that we do that is you'll have a group, a security group. And so people who are on the board of directors may have one level of access, people that are district commanders another, base commanders another. And so none of this is going to be how things have been done for a long time in most of the places that I work at stuff. And, you know, that I think I don't think that's a bad thing. John has a question in the chat about users login, screen name, and passwords migrate. We think so. You know, what will also happen is you, in some cases, you may have to recreate that password. The reason being is, it's like anything, 20 years ago, password requirements were a little bit more loosey-goosey. Today, it's got to be capitals, numbers, letters, symbols. We are not going to turn on two-factor authentication because I think that would probably, we all have to deal with that to some degree, and we don't think that would really be helpful. What we may do is, if it's possible, and I meet with their security folks here in a couple of days, is we're going to ask them, can you actually put multi-factor authentication for the administrative accounts, which will probably be the national office manager and Steve Bell, who will take care of that. He's the one who assigns rights and access to things. We think the logins will come over. We're not 110% sure yet, but that's a question I'll make sure I ask.
Tim,
Yes.
my understanding from the past is that base commanders, district commanders, and regional directors will be able to email directly to those people under them without putting together their own address books. Is that still going to work?
Yeah, I mean, that system used to work with our current website. The way that they're developing this, it may be, I don't know exactly. There's two different ways in our system that you can email people. One of them is unlimited, and the other one stops at 300,000 per year. So as we learn more about how we can do that, I think the answer is going to be yes, but I can't say that with 100% certainty. That's what it looks like. I mean, I've taken something like 15 classes of Blackbaud, and they have this whole huge university. I haven't even gotten to the email part yet. Had to take 8 just to get through the basics of the database and the website portion of this. So I'm working through it as I have time. I think you're going to be able to email folks, but the other thing that's really important is that the national commander or the POC manager, they will be able to email every single member directly if they need to. And it'll work. I mean, because it doesn't work now. So that's a good thing. Next question. I guess silence is golden, but
Okay, this is Mario from the Big Apple base.
hey, Mario.
How you doing? So I'm the selected member for my group because everyone's busy, so they can't do it, and I'm the only tech savvy guy. But I'm trying to log into the website right now, and I'm getting issues logging in with the sessions, with the cookie sessions and everything. And since I'm running Windows 11 and everything new, the instructions on how to reset them
Doesn't work.
doesn't work.
That's right. So you can't access the old website with Windows 11. If you have Windows 10 or earlier, you can set up Edge in a way where it uses Internet Explorer to get into the thing. Believe me, that was the first thing we hunted down and killed, because it's, that's not the way you do things on the internet anymore. So we got rid of that, and that will, should take effect, probably around the middle of June, when we rebuilt better, or built back better, whatever you want to call it, website is up and running. So we
Okay.
took all that out.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to get Phil to go on his old computer to back
Yeah.
up everything.
Yeah, I know. They told me buy an old computer. No. Anyway, okay, somebody's asking again for what browsers. So no problem at all. So Firefox, Edge, Chrome, and Safari. And if it uses those, if it works with those, it'll probably work with anything else. I'm not a fan of Opera, but it is what it is. You know, that's what we have to use sometimes to get to the old site if you can't get there with Explorer. Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, it was a lot of work. I'm just really grateful that I have a really good team. I mean, our database person has done this for 20 plus years, does it for large organizations still. We have a really good coder and something called a certified ethical hacker that does a lot of website and database stuff. So I used to teach ethical hacking. He and I really communicate well. So that's where you are somebody that goes in and tries to break into systems with permission. Other question is, with this new website, we'll finally move into the 21st century and be able to pay our dues online. That is a really interesting question. Blackbaud, the company, does have the ability for us to have a merchant account and to be able to pay things via debit card or credit card. However, it's a little bit more complex than that because we can do that. The other part of it is that your base dues would not be a part of that. You just would want to pay, you know, most of our stuff, I think it's 1, 3, and 5 year paying your national dues or life, being a life member. So it's possible to do that, and they have the system that's built to take care of paying dues online. I don't know. That's really more a business decision from the national leadership. I don't have a problem with it. We're going to set up the accounts regardless because that was the smart thing to do. Whether we choose to use it or not is more of a political and a business decision that you know, I think is a good idea, but that doesn't mean that that will be the decision that's made. And you know, I mean, there's lots of use cases where we could potentially use that, but it would require us to modify the way we do things. And so that is something for the board of directors to take up, not for me to opine or discuss that. Let them figure that out. And however they decide to do it, it'll be fine.
Tim,
Yes.
that question would have to require an amendment to the Constitution because the national Constitution says national dues are supposed to be paid through the base.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way it stands right now. So the only people that can pay online or that way would be members at large.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's good to know. Thank you for that, Fritz, sorry. All right. Other questions?
Dave Davis, North Jersey. Are they going to have any kind of a social media module with the database?
I am not certain. I don't think I haven't seen anything that says that it would. And if they did have it, I'm not certain it would be part of the database side. It might be part of the website side. I'll ask that question. I'm not certain. I'm going to write that one down. And what I'll do with all the questions I've gotten is I'm going to recap them here in a bit. Okay. And make sure that I didn't miss anything. And I'll send all the answers to Les. And then Les can parse them out to everybody. I figure that's probably a good way of doing it. Pat Scarangello from Long Island base. membership chairmen have the same access to enter info, or will they be restricted? My understanding is should be exactly the same or very similar. You'll be just like a base commander or a treasurer. You'll have the same access to your base's info, and you should be able to update that as needed. Any other questions?
Back Mario from Big Apple Base.
Yeah.
So for future reference, so going back to what we were talking about earlier about how long it's gonna keep on going and how we're gonna keep on making it better and keep it going. Are the bases gonna be required to have like a designated administrator for each base just to make sure all their data is correct and just to help you guys even better?
Well, you know, we have that now, really, the base commander and the membership chair / treasurer, however it works, a little bit different places. They're the ones who keep track of that, current members and everything else. You know, we, even in my base, we have trouble and have to, you know, ask, you know, kind of, I don't want to say beat on our members, but close to that to get them to update their information. So one of the things that would be really helpful is you have downloaded a copy of your members' information and maybe send it out to your members to make sure that it's correct. So then if there's any changes, you can note that and fix that when the new database comes up. Make sense?
Makes sense.
Anybody else? I'm putting that email in the chat again. It's USSVI website questions at gmail.com. And if you have any questions, feel free to you know, reach out via that email. I've answered everybody's questions, or I'll connect you with the people that you need to connect to. Any other questions?
Oh, one last question. Can you just give us a brief background on the Blackboard company and why they were selected?
Yeah, that they selected them just before I showed up and was asked to jump on with this. Blackbaud is a $1 billion company. They do a lot of fundraising and social good stuff for a context. I believe the Naval Submarine League also uses them. And we've told them we're not really going to be doing a lot of fundraising that we're aware of. I mean, the USSVI Charitable Foundation is kind of a separate beast there. But what we do is talk with them, you know, and they have a cloud-based platform. I have spoken, you know, with their folks quite a bit, and I've worked with the leadership team to make sure that we're all clear what we're expecting. We were told we would be able to get this done by the end of August. And that's what we're, for lack of a better term, holding their feet to the fire to do. My biggest job is making sure all the stuff that I have to turn in to them is turned in on time, so that we don't have to have any real concerns about us being the holdup there. Most of the consultants we have are really good. I mean, one of the guys that is the guy who's going to develop our website is excited to do this, and he's done some really nice work. It's all, he does specializes using this platform. But I mean, a lot of your big charities and nonprofits do use them. They're a publicly traded company, so it's not like here today, gone tomorrow necessarily. we have spoken, I've spoken with them. I actually, like I said, I meet with their cybersecurity team on Tuesday morning. And I'm sure that will be an interesting discussion because I've got some questions about things just to make sure that I'm clear on how they do business. And I think at the end, it'll be fine. It's an adjustment. We had somebody, I mean, and to be honest, the old website was way ahead of its time. There are some good things and some bad things about it, but it was something that was very advanced when we got it. The challenge is that when you get something that's so super duper customized and no one else knows what was done, you have to unravel it to put it back together again. And that's kind of where we're finding ourselves. Someone just asked me, Robert, in the chat, currently we have someone assigned as the POC contact, point of contact for new members. Will that remain going forward? My understanding is yes, it will. That could change, but I don't believe there's any intention to change it out. Just realize that they do have the capability of directly emailing everyone. That doesn't mean they're always going to do that. I think if it was something that was super important, that might be, if you think about it in Navy speak, flash traffic or something, maybe that's when you do that. But I don't think you would be doing that on all the time. That's my opinion. But anybody else? Okay, I've got a couple different things here. Okay, well, there'll be an improvement to the new member process as well from Robert at Long Island base. I'm hopeful that there will be. I was vociferously discussing with the company that we need to have the ability for someone to sign up online. And then there's their system, the way their system works, it has to be processed by the national office. That way you can make sure that you've gotten the payment before you add them to the member database. So yeah, we want to make it easier. And that's a big part of my goal, is to make it simple. So you go fill out your stuff one time, hit submit, pay the bill, and you're done. Now, Tom just asked, how different will the look be of the new site from the old site? I'm hopeful that nobody will be confused. The new site is going to be pretty simple. It's going to be a splash page with a picture of a submarine on it. And if you've seen the old or the site from the Paris, France company, yeah, I don't know, it'll look exactly like that, but it's only going to have like 3 or 4 links at the top. And that'll be things like join USSVI, about us, maybe a history of USSVI, a members link. So you may have 3 to 5 of those. And then once you go into the members site is where you see what we currently call the tools information. It will be far more updated than what we currently have. And like I said, I've seen some examples of work this guy has done, and it's pretty nice. And I mean, met with my approval and others. And so it's just, whatever he does, we want it to be, we've taken several ideas from several sites that are both military and not military, and really looked through them quite a bit to see if there was something that we thought would work for us. Any further questions?
This is John Radins from the Buffalo Base. So,
John.
Hi, nice to meet you. Glad you got into this. I don't know what took so long to find you. 2 years of other people working at it. You nail it in 6 weeks. You've got a great team. Bravo Zulu.
Thank you. I've been talking about this with people for a number of years. So it wasn't like, But I mean, I think you also have to take the perspective that you've got a lot of people talk to the national commander. I mean, and I'm sure that the noise level is pretty large there. I mean, the good news is that I talked to him a while ago, but he called me back, and we were able to put together some folks, and people put a lot of effort into this. And the good news is, I mean, just handing that database over probably upped our success rate about 75%. 3 companies couldn't do it. And we had people that, you know, were familiar. Some of the guys we work with, they're base officers and they work with the tools menu quite a bit. And they had some good experience there. And that was a big part of making the difference. Okay, so the next question I have here, will a user be able to look at different bases, districts, regions? I believe it looks like that will be the case. What you won't be able to do is look at all of your personally identifiable information. At least that's one of the things that we're working on. So we have enough information that was all displayed on our site. In the reality, what that would do is allow somebody to steal your identity. We're not really in favor of that, because so what we're doing instead is, if you like our find the shipmate function, what we would ideally want is the ability to have 3 or 4 pieces of information. In other words, somebody's name, maybe their base, an email, and a phone number at the most. Because when you give away, when you put people's birth dates and their addresses, that makes it a lot easier to steal your identity. And we really don't want that for any of you. Whether it's somebody that's inside the organization, which is doubtful, but somebody or someone that breaks into the database. So we're just trying to make sure that we only give the information that is needed to get a hold of you. Anybody else? Well, I'd really like to thank everybody for coming, first of all. And thanks, Les, for putting this out to your people. I will continue to send out monthly emails on our progress of where we are and where we're going and how everything looks. There may be one a little bit earlier if we get everything running up and running with the repurposed, rebuilt old website. I'll put that out as soon as that's available, and we'll work through any of the things we need to work through with you. That's all I have. Thanks everybody for coming. And if you want to ask any, I'm going to stop recording and I'll be happy to stick around for a few if anybody wants to.